time. Madam Clerk, we have a quorum.
We do have a quorum, and also County Attorney Tim Moore is joining us via teleconference in this meeting.
This time I recognize Tommy McNeely, who's going to lead us in the pledge and then the invocation.
Good afternoon. If everybody would, face the flag and pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, if you would be with us tonight, while these group of individuals make the best decisions that they possibly can for Cleveland County. Be with the spectators and the people in the audience, and again, help us make the best decisions that they can. In Jesus' name,
Amen.
All right, thank you, Tommy. At this time, I recognize any elected officials that we have tonight. All right, seeing none, at this time, I recognize any veterans that we have in attendance.
Would you stand, please? Somebody here, introduce yourself and your branch of service.
Bill Stones, Sergeant.
Army?
Jason Pauls, United States Air Force.
Russell Haney, United States Army.
Marge Hooper, Army nurse, major, 22 years.
Johnny Hutchins, U.S. Army. We have a veteran pin that we give to everyone who attends this military service. Does everyone have one, or anyone that does not have one? If you do not have one, come up and I'll be glad to give you one.
Anybody? Me?
What it is the county pin with a veteran's rocker on it. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service, brother. Thank you.
At this time, recognize any law enforcement that is present.
Danny House, Cleveland County Sheriff's Office.
And lastly, recognize county department heads.
Chris Martin, Planning Office.
Katie Swanson, Social Services. Allison Mooney, Human Resources.
Jason Pauls, Business Development Director.
Barry Davis, Emergency Medical Department.
Sherry Lavender, Tax Administration.
Logan May.
Story McIntyre, Communications.
Tommy McNeely, EMS.
Carrie Melton, Assistant County Manager.
At this time, we'll entertain a motion to adopt the proposed agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to add item I to the consent agenda, which is board appointments to the Cleveland County Commission for Women.
I'll second it.
All right, motion second to adopt the amended schedule or amended agenda. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor will say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed will say no. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is citizen recognition.
The citizen recognition portion of the meeting is an opportunity for persons wishing to appear before the commission to do so. Each presentation will be limited to 3 minutes. No public comment period shall extend beyond 30 minutes. The board is interested in hearing citizen concerns, yet speakers should not expect comment, action, or deliberation on subject matter brought up during this segment. Topics requiring further investigation will be referred to the appropriate county agency.
All right, first name on the list is Marjorie Hooper.
Good evening. I understand that we can't say that we don't want our taxes to be increased, that is like built in by the state, but I think I do have something to say about where my tax money goes to. And I am not the mother of Eddie Holbrook. I didn't birth him, and I don't want to support him in the manner to which he has become accustomed to live. So I want my tax money to not go anymore to Eddie Holbrook and his sham of a company. If he has a handle on the American Legion game, don't give him any more money. I can come here too and just hold out my hand like this and say, here, give me money, because I want it. Okay? I understand also, in regards to my taxes, that we are going to be assessed by someone coming into my house and measuring the inside of my house. And I talked to 2 county commissioners yesterday, and one person tells me that that's just a rumor. Well, it's not a rumor, because I think the person is the county manager that said that he can come into our house and measure the inside of our house to reassess us and increase our taxes higher than what they are. You already have this information. You know how many acres I own. You know how much my house is worth. You know how many bedrooms and how many bathrooms are in my house. All you got to do is just click on that Zillow thing, all right? And so just to go back again, I do not want my money going to Eddie Holbrook anymore. I still have a whole minute. Wow. So in regards to the drones, my house is my house. I paid for it. You come and meet me on my porch, I'll introduce you to my best friends, Smith and Weston. And I will shoot those drones out of the sky, okay? That's a for sure thing. I can promise you that. I do not want my money going to Eddie Holbrook anymore. Thank you ever so much.
Next name on the list is Robert Williams.
I don't know how to follow that. Oh, my name is Robert Williams, 814 East Stagecoach Trail. I don't know how to follow that, but I agree with so much of it. And I did hear somebody named the county manager say, and hopefully in jest, that they could do these kind of things, come in your house and have drones and do this and do that. I heard it. I was sitting right there at a previous meeting. And what I intended to talk about tonight was what you commissioners voted on the last meeting, June 21st, is to delay discussion about the assessment until tonight. Well, it's not on the agenda tonight. You voted on it unanimously to have that on the agenda tonight. It is not on the agenda tonight. There's other things that's not on the agenda tonight. The minutes of that June the 21st meeting. Typically, the next meeting after a meeting, you have the minutes and you approve them. Now, to me, those minutes are missing, and I don't know why. I would, as I say in my writing, sometimes I smell a rat. But since it's not on the agenda, and what I was going to say, I'll just say in writing. I've had some comments over the weekend on my last article. I held off until tonight to see what you're going to do tonight. But I will say this, my last article, I have gone over it. I have watched the video of the last meeting. I have absolutely nothing I would change in that particular article based on the comments or anything else. Sometimes I have a typo or two I always find afterwards. I'm not a good typist. I did take 1 year typing, but that's in high school, and that's it. That was a long time ago. But I signed up on the sign-in is to say something about the golden rule. The golden rule is, and historically it is, that do unto others as you would have others do unto you. I would remind you of all of that. I'd also remind you to, when you have a doubt, don't do it. If you have a vote on something and you don't understand it, don't vote for it until you do understand it. Since I've got 0 seconds, I won't say anymore.
Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, Mr. Epley.
Thank you, sir. Several items for consideration. Item A, minutes from your June 7th regular commissioner meeting. Those minutes are included in your packet for review, consideration. Item B is from our finance department. This is your monthly manager's report, which has the last 30 days of lateral budget transfers. Also a couple of highlights. Extremely proud of the team. Last year, as you all know, we were recognized by the Charlotte Business Journal of both public and private companies for employee wellness. Last year, we ranked 11th, and this year we moved up to 2nd. And I've shared that with commissioners, but that's something that we've made a concerted effort to promote workplace wellness and employee wellness. Not only produces a more productive employee, but saves the county a lot of money, and that's something that we're very proud of. Also point out that we are working through the year-end close process for our fiscal year end, June 30th, and beginning our outside audit process with our outside third-party CPA auditors. And that is well underway, aimed to be completed by the deadline, which is October 31st. Item C is our tax administration collection report for June. Again, very proud to report that team has worked to exceed last year's collection percentage and concluded the year at 98.58% collected. Item D, also from tax administration, abatements and supplements for the month of June. Abatements totaled $39,735.33. Supplements for the month totaled $221,954.69. Also included in item D is consideration for late applications. We would have one exemption for elderly and another one for disabled. The estimated fiscal impact is $658. Asking for approval on those late applications for exemption and inclusion. Item E is a request to set a public hearing for Tuesday, August the 2nd, be case 2220. This is a request for a rezoning of property at 1256 Cleveland Avenue from residential to general business. The parcel number is 57853. It's approximately 50 acres. And this, again, is a request to rezone from residential to general business. And we're asking tonight to set a public hearing for August the 2nd. Item F, also a request to set a public hearing from the planning department. Case 22-23, the property is located at 3052 Blacksburg Road. This request is from residential to neighborhood business. The parcel number is 5258. It's approximately 60 acres. Both item E and item F will be heard by the planning board in July and hold the public hearing here with the commissioners August 2nd. Item G is a request to grant an easement for the Broad River Greenway. North Carolina General Statute 160A-273 authorizes the county to grant those types of easements. This would be a temporary 12-month original easement that would provide access down to the Broad River. And a stipulation is before the conclusion of the 12 months is over, we would review, meet and confer with the property owner and evaluate how the relationship and easement is working, and that could be extended at that time. A couple provisions in the easements that would allow no UTVs. Obviously, that's already at the Broadway, at the Greenway. If Broad River Campground is no longer using the property or it's not being used in its current capacity, that would also terminate the easement. They're also making a one-time $500 contribution to the nonprofit there in consideration for this easement being granted by the Board of Commissioners. Item H is from our legal department. This is a request to amend a deed for sale. At our last meeting, we approved the sale of county-owned parcel 43596. That's on Cabinets Drive. The new owner of that property who purchased it from us has asked that we change the name on the deed from his personal name to an investment company that he would rather hold the property. So we're requesting to change that name to BVJ Properties LLC. And finally, as amended by Commissioner Harden, item I is a request to reestablish the original appointment of 3 board members that were originally on the Commission for Women. Mary Acker, Diane Davis, and Valerie Boyd would be reappointed to the Commission for Women to an existing term as they were prior serving. And that completes the consent agenda. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Commissioners, you've been presented the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? If there's no discussion, I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor will say aye. Those opposed will say no. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the public hearing. Madam Clerk.
After the public hearing has been opened, persons wishing to speak for or against the proposition will be asked to come forward and first state his or her name and address. All comments from the public are to be directed to the board. There are no comments directed at other members in the audience. If a speaker has a question, that question is to be directed to the board chair. No one will be allowed to speak at the hearing more than once unless the board chair recognizes the speaker a second time for rebuttal of information brought forth after the speaker has spoken. The original presentation by a speaker will be limited to no more than 5 minutes. The rebuttal presentation will be limited to no more than 3 minutes.
All right, looks like we have 3 public hearings on the list tonight. So first, I'll recognize Planning Director Chris Martin, who's going to come present Planning Department Case 22-17. This is a request to rezone property at 110 Ware Loop from residential to neighborhood business, conditional use for a recreational vehicle park.
Good evening, Chairman Gordon, Board. We have a few items for you tonight for your consideration. The first is a request to change the zoning of a particular piece of property from residential to conditional neighborhood business. The petitioner is Jeff Dekalb, and he's asking to change about 8 acres along Ware Loop Road, which is in the Oak Grove community, where Brook Road and Ware Loop Road both meet Oak Grove Road. He's asking to change that to neighborhood business conditional with the intent of using it for 2 residences and 10 RV sites. He's presented a site plan showing how he's going to use the property. Staff has reviewed the site plan and determined that it meets all the minimum standards for an RV park. The property is currently, as I stated, it's currently zoned residential. The properties surrounding this parcel in the county's jurisdiction are also residential zoning district. And then the properties to the east, you'll see that they're in the Kings Mountains planning jurisdiction, and they're zoned as what we call suburban residential, which is, I would call that the equivalent of our restricted residential. It's site-built homes and modulars only. The land use plan calls this area future primary growth area. And then you can see that area is designated by the orange color, and then the gray shows Kings Mountains planning jurisdiction. We presented this case to the planning board, and they had a lot of discussion, and they heard a lot of comment from both the petitioner and many of the neighbors. Many of the neighbors that spoke were opposed, most in fact. The planning board themselves had a lot of discussion amongst themselves. The final vote was 3-3. Their goal is to give the Board of Commissioners a recommendation of whether or not they feel like it meets all the criteria and is a reasonable request and should be approved. But the board themselves had a lot of discussion, a lot of perspectives, and they landed at a 3-3 vote. And I think the board, they all agreed that, that use could fit in that land use district of primary growth, but they also talked a lot about spot zoning. And what I want to do with you guys is explain a little bit about spot zoning. We encounter that a lot with our hearings. With spot zoning, I think you've got 2 things that you want to look at. You want to answer the question, is it a spot zone? And you can think of the definition of a spot zone as giving a single parcel either greater or less restrictions than the properties around it. So you've got to answer that question, is it a spot zone? And then if it is, then you got to answer the question, is it reasonable? Is it a reasonable request, and does it benefit the community? So when we're evaluating a request, whether or not it's spot zoning, you want to look at several things. You want to look at the size of the parcel relative to the size of the parcels around it. You want to look at The fact is the request for one parcel or multiple parcels. And then you also want to look at, are the restrictions different, or is the proposal different and not in harmony with the area? When considering if it's a reasonable request and benefits the area, you want to look at the property itself and determine if it's unique, and if only certain uses in a district, in a certain zoning district, would be compatible with that property due to topography or infrastructure on the property. Then you want to determine if the proposed use is in harmony with the area. And then if the answer is yes, you want to determine, has there been any appropriate safeguards to protect the area around it, such as landscape screening or setbacks. So those are a lot of the discussion, a lot of the topics the planning board discussed. And I think that, at the end, we had a 3-3 vote, so we didn't have a approval, recommendation, or denial, but I think we had a message, and that message from the board was that there were different perspectives concerning spot zoning and whether or not it was a reasonable request and benefited this community. And I can answer any questions.
Members of the board, do you have any questions? I have one. If you would, before we open the public hearing, can you remind everyone what conditional use means, what sets that
Yes.
difference from just a standard application?
Yes, and I apologize, I should have covered that during my presentation, but we have two methods of asking to rezone property. The first is what we know as the traditional method. You ask to rezone or zone a piece of property, a certain zoning district, and if approved, you can use that property for any use allowed in that district. The second method is the conditional request, which is what we have tonight. With that request, you're picking out a use or uses out of a district, and you're showing them on a plan of how you want to use that property. And if approved, the landowner can then only use the property as that site plan was approved. So if they ever decided to change that use or enlarge the uses on that property, they would have to come back to the board and have the plan reapproved.
Do they have to do everything that's on the plan? Do you follow what I'm asking?
Yes. So to answer that question, I would say no. And the example I would give is if 10 sites were approved, they wouldn't necessarily have to have up to 10, or 10, they could have 8 or 7, but they couldn't have greater than what they're showing.
They could build one house instead of two.
They could build one house instead of 2.
But they can't build 3.
But they can't build 3, exactly.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you, Chris. You might want to hang out for questions, and then we have some more to follow this. So at this time, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against Planning Department Case 22-17, request to rezone property at 110 Ware Loop from residential to neighborhood business, conditional use for a recreation a vehicle park, please come forward and state your name and address.
Hi, I'm Jeff DeCaro. We're from Denver, North Carolina. Okay.
Go ahead.
So our family's from Denver, North Carolina. We lived there 30-plus years. I was under the impression I was going to be able to show a PowerPoint today, so I'm kind of winging this. So I'm going to kind of follow my notes. We lived there for 30-plus years, raised our family. They were able to ride their bikes, walk to their friends. We had great neighbors that we still stay in touch with. And that's what we want to get back to. We want to get back to the country. This is one of the reasons that we wanted to reach out to the neighbors of this property to introduce ourselves and to be upfront about the visions for this property. We know a couple have changed their minds for whatever reason. We met several times with all the neighbors connected to this property. We've had good conversations. I know they're good people, and we would be happy to be part of this community. So anyway, we raised our children, and we decided to sell our home in 2016, and we bought an RV and traveled the country. Absolutely love it, met great people. I remember my wife saying, you know, what a great family environment. I would like to point out that RVers, this is not a mobile home park. RVers take great pride in their RVs. Motorhomes start at $250,000. Fifth wheels and trucks about the same. So that's the kind of clientele we want. We want it clean. We don't want full-timers. You know, we don't want full-time people living there. It's passing through, camping, vacation. We asked for 10 sites, 6 to 10 sites. That's what financially made sense for extra income to help build our family homes. This proposed site will also give RV friends that we've met all over the country a nice place to visit when they're passing through. Another reason we went with the conditional zoning is to show our neighbors that this is all we want. We are not looking to grow an RV park. If that was the case, we'd be looking at commercial land. We paid for the site plan, and we will stick to the site plan and the county codes. There'll be rules in place such as quiet time, no trashy campers or sites, no dump stations, meaning RVs cannot come in and just pay to dump. We don't want that kind of traffic, so you do have to stay. You know, we want a great family environment for neighbors, room for our grandkids to grow up and play. We want garden, goats, chickens, just like our neighbors. My wife even talked about getting a donkey, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen. But like I said, we want our property beautiful. This property, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it does need a lot of tender love and care. It's been undeveloped for many generations. There is a existing septic tank on Ware Loop, or the Brookside, existing foundation from a garage. Used to be a single-wide trailer, and there is a septic system there. So we will be living on the property full-time and start working and getting it cleaned up. Thank you for your time on this proposal.
And can I get your name and address for the record?
Yeah, it's Jeff DeCarl. We actually have a South Dakota address because we're full-time. That's 514 America's Way, number 7639, Box Elder, South Dakota, 57719.
Thank you.
And then all of our kids live in Charlotte and Huntersville and Concord. And this is home. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hello, I'm Carolyn Evans. I live at 115 Ware Loop. I'm the only odd-numbered place on the wrong side of the road, if that makes sense. Everybody else on the side of the road that I live on, or where all the houses are, all have even numbers. And for some odd reason, for 30-some years, I have an odd number. I have lived in the Oak Grove community. In fact, I have lived within this parcel of land for over 50 years. At one time, I lived where the mobile home was on Brook Road. I moved from one side of the pasture to the other side of the pasture, one could say. As already been stated, this land is zoned as residential, residential, and the new owner wishes to rezone the land. I am okay with the houses being built on the property. I am not okay with RV park being built on the property. As one can tell, my property is a little long rectangle land that stretches there along the way. I just got a little narrow strip of land, y'all. Anyway, this is where I live in my house here. We will be wonderful neighbors to anybody who wishes to live near us. We welcome houses into the neighborhood. We welcome families into our neighborhood there at all, but we do not welcome an RV park. I'll just keep telling you that. This property is a country-style setting, as previously noted. It has many open fields around it, where one can watch the fruits of a farmer tending to their crops and their things that they have. I love sitting out watching the tractors and the combines and the people that are gathering the hay. There are many wooded acres in this area where this is located at. I love sitting out at night or early mornings and watching the coyotes and the fox and the deer that come out. And I think at one time in my life, I actually saw a bear, but everybody says I was a little crazy, but that's okay. On our little farm that we have, and that's what we call a little farm, we grow many vegetables because with the high price of things these days, we've got to keep our costs down. We have chickens, we have goats, we have pigs, we have a horse, we have ducks, and we have rabbits. We have dogs and we have cats. Plus the grandchildren have snakes, and I'm not exactly sure what all else is there. I'll just be honest with you. But we do have a lot of things there. This type of venture that an RV park would bring to our neighborhood, to me, is just not feasible for this neighborhood at all. Maybe it promises to be a great park, have good clientele that park their trailers and things, RVs there, but it's just not what I want. Many years ago, I remember, and I don't know how my paper that was given to me at the time by the county, but this little strip of land that starts about up here at this little, I can't tell you on the map here, at the corner, and it goes back as a pie shape around the northern part of Kings Mountain, was zoned, my understanding, to where there would be no mobile home parks or no apartments and stuff like that into this area. My place was within that area. I don't know whether that's still that way or not. I have never found a map that has that little part marked off anymore at all. So that might be irrelevant to what I'm just now saying. But I'm asking you to please do not rezone this property to include an RV park. This is not the area for this type of things. There are no gas or food establishments within a 2 or 3 mile radius. The little commercial areas that you call out, the little country store as we call it, the last time that it was held anything in it was a junk store. Before that it was a seed store. So, and the other little red place that was commercial is a beauty shop. But there's just not these things on these areas for close enough for people to, maybe people get out and go and drive and go get these things at all, but I don't. So it's just not a place that I see that we need things. I am a person that is known to sit out at night in the field or out in the road if I have to get away from the natural light, or light bulbs, these outdoor lights that people, because I love to watch the stars. I go out to look for the International Space Station. I don't know how many of you have ever set out to look at the International Space Station, but it is fascinating to watch it go across our universe. I get out to watch the meteors. I get out to watch whatever they say is going across in our nighttime sky. You can't do that if there's a lot of outdoor lighting around you. You have to get out and find a very dark area. And country, it's just hard to find anymore. I don't drive, so I can't go anywhere to find something to do that type thing. I drive, but I don't have a vehicle. Let me put it that way.
Ma'am, your time's up.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
Well, thank you so much for listening to me. That was most of it anyway.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak for or against the Planning Department case 2217 request to rezone property at 110 Ware Drive?
I would like to say.
My name is Charles Daniel Evans. I live at 115 Ware Loop Drive. I help take care of my mother. We was approached by Mr. DeHaro, but he says something about building an RV park, which I said, I'm not for it. I wish you the best of luck, but I wish I could stop you. He asked for my name and number. I give you my name and number, which they're saying now that I helped sign the paper stating that I wanted to see this. No, I do not want to see it. Because one reason I don't want to see it, the way he's got the plan there, y'all's code is only 3 mobile homes per acre. There's up to 5 of them are on 1 acre. That will not work. That land has never been perked. It will not perk. Pretty much from everywhere from that one house down will not perk because we've lived there our whole life. My family's been there since '49. But the one thing I have against the RV park, it's an easy in and out thing for an RV to pull in that night, pull out the next day. I have 2 teenage daughters. We live in a crazy, messed up world where there's child sex trafficking left and right. I do not know this man personally other than that. I cannot track nothing like that because it can be wiped away with a certain lawyer. But I do not want to see this turn into an RV park where it can be nothing but people just coming in and out, stealing stuff, shooting, you never know. Because look at Brown's Trailer Park across the Hounds Trailer Park. It gets a phone call every day from 911 over some stupidity, meth overdose, or drugs, or whatever the heck else goes over there. But we do not like to see this. And as for the pond proposed, there's no natural source of water. So we're all going to get eat up with mosquitoes. Welcome, neighborhood. But we're going to get eat up with mosquitoes when it does have a little bit of rainwater in the bottom of it. I don't see that should be proposed unless somebody comes out there and drills it and say it'll perk. You could build a pond on it. But other than that, I don't see how also, if you go down this way, go back to your other map where it was zoned, I will point it out. Right here, the city has got it zoned. How can they only zone so much of the property and not control the rest of the property? How are you allowed to use it if your property is partially zoned one way and you're going to use it for another way? The old septic tank that was up there has been caved in for 40 years. So this man's going to be out here with his septic waste. Who knows what he does with it? Who cares? I guess because it's nobody's business but ours. So other than that, I just don't see it happening. And like they said in the last meeting, you got to live around all these people. Welcome to the neighborhood.
Is there anyone else would like to speak for or against this case? If you guys are interested in speaking for or against, just keep coming up so I don't have to say that every time if you don't mind.
My name is Cindy Thompson. I live at 120 Ware Loop Drive. And I'd just like to ask you guys to please not let an RV park come into our neighborhood. I've been in the same house 40 years, know all my neighbors. I sit in the backyard, I watch the deer. They come up to us, we feed them. I think this will really disturb that. I agree with what Charlie said, that the back part of that property is a flood zone. It comes up into our property when we get a lot of rain. That whole back in there is a flood zone, which maybe it can be fixed, I don't know. Another concern I have is a lot of us have young grandchildren, some of them even teenagers. I'm not sure that I really would like to have an RV park in my community. Another thing is there's a lot of elderly people, especially women. That is a major concern of mine. All around us, it's older people. The husbands have died. The lady is home alone. I understand that they're saying it's going to be good people. Only certain people can come. It's just for vacation. I understand that 100%. I like to camp. I call it camping, not RVing. I truly do like it. But I go to a lake or something like that. I don't go to somebody's country community. I just don't understand why anybody would even want to do that to an old country place where people have been living there 40, 50, 60 years. And I would just ask that you guys please consider that we all know each other, we're all older, or a lot of us are, and we're very concerned. Times are just not like they used to be, and I'm just not that trusting of a person anymore. Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Jerry Blanton, and I am an RVer. And we have frequented places like Jeff was trying to put in as a stopover in traveling. Not to stay. We spend a couple of nights, we're on our way. And I think, from what I understand, this is the purpose. It's not to have a campground. I mean, face it, why would anybody come to Kings Mountain to camp? I mean, they go to the casino. But it's not a full-time place to live. It's just a place to stop over, stay a night or two, and go home. I have no problems with it. And I'm in the minority, I know, but I respect everybody else's feelings about it. But I don't see a problem with having it there. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, sir. My name's Richard White. I live at 138 Ware Loop. I'm not sure if, about this, if it's the appropriate way to do it, but I have more, I guess, more questions than I do comments. As far as this being a proposed site and have conditional use, does that mean that plan can change, like the houses do not have to be built? Can the site exist without the houses and it just be an RV park? Or will Mr. Dekalb have to build at least one house and have on-site management for the park? So I guess that comes from my lack of understanding about how the zones and everything work. So I guess that's a concern for mine. Also, just about the management of the park, which will come first, the park or the homes? Because to me, in my opinion, you need full-time management of an RV park, especially if it's going to be in a residential neighborhood. We're a peaceful, quiet neighborhood, and we would like it to stay that way. Nothing personal against Mr. Dekalb and his family. I spoke with them personally, and we would welcome them as neighbors, and I let them know that. But I just have concerns about it. Plus, too, I'll just, have concerns about which comes first, the chicken or the egg. Do the houses have to be built? Since this is a proposal, if the houses are not built and nobody lives there and it's just an RV park, can that happen? And can it stay that way? And I think my other question was also, it's my understanding once this is zoned business, that it remains that way permanently, which can come into play later on down the road if the property is ever sold, is what my thoughts are. So I guess those are my comments and also my questions, and hopefully somebody can answer my questions for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Brandon Dekalb, address 4901 Doris Avenue, and that's Charlotte, North Carolina. So I live in Charlotte. I'm a personal trainer there. My fiance is a school teacher, elementary school teacher in Union County. We've been really excited to get back to the country. We spent a lot of time in Kings Mountain and really enjoyed the people we met, even going out to eat at Love's Fish Camp, going to the country club. Everyone's been super nice and respectful. And after searching several areas in North Carolina, that's one thing that helped us make our decision, was the community. I'm 31, my fiance and I have been together for 7 years, and we plan to start a family in the near future, and this is the perfect place for us to raise our children. We plan on farming, we plan on having animals, we have dogs. And just to touch on the conditional zoning, again, we did it this way, for one, because we don't have interest expanding more than what's being proposed. It just made sense financially for us to be able to build a home because we're paying for the property without a house built. And so the neighbors would feel comfortable knowing that we aren't allowed to do any more than this site plan. I will mention that it's in the top left corner, the RV park, so it's not visible from the roads. Really, you can't see anybody's property except the Evans, and it's still about a football field away from the house. And that's without the screening that we're required to put in, and we'll be doing that. We drove 2 hours round trip each time we came to visit and spent several days and hours speaking with the neighbors. We would have loved to speak with everyone who's here today, but our priority was the neighbors living directly next to us. We were surprised and disappointed to hear that a couple of them changed their minds because we enjoyed getting to know them and had great conversations about it. As far as some of the concerns, I don't believe we have that picture to show, but we did see other businesses in the area, even on Ware Loop. You could correct me if I'm wrong about that. And we would love to support local businesses. As far as like sex offenders and things like that, we take that serious and we looked it up online. There's 80 sex offenders in Kings Mountain. We don't believe that they will be traveling in an RV because they're not allowed to travel state to state without permission. I don't believe that would be an issue. Background checks are not required for RV parks, hotels, et cetera, unless it's a permanent spot, which this will not be. As far as the lighting, RVs have their own light, so we won't be putting in street lights or any excessive lighting. They have their own own lights on the RV. And I've visited my dad plenty of times, and most parks are very quiet and everybody's super friendly. I've never been anywhere where there's loud partying or anything chaotic going on. And as I think Rick mentioned, my dad will be living on the property right away. So, we believe the septic tank works. If not, we'll put one in before anything happens, and living on the property to work on everything, cleaning the property up. So that is their home. So they will be there full time, and it will not be left unattended. I think some of these concerns could be easily resolved, but if there's anything we can do to help, we would be happy to. We understand this is a change for everyone around us because it has been an empty lot for several years. But this is a growth area, and once we clean up this property and build our family homes, we will be increasing the value for not only this property, but all the surrounding properties as well. And we want to become great neighbors in this community. I would like to thank you for your time and consideration of this proposal for our family.
Anyone else? Is there anyone else wishing to speak for or against the Planning Department case 22-17, request to rezone property at 110 Ware Loop from residential to neighborhood business conditional use for a recreation vehicle park?
May I answer Rick's questions about how?
We will address those.
Okay.
Anyone else?
My name is Robert Williams. I don't know anything about this property. I don't know any of the people. But I do know a recommendation I made just a little bit ago. And when I heard that the planning board had doubts in a 3-3 vote, I'm thinking there are doubts. My recommendation a while ago was, when in doubt, don't do it until you don't have any more doubts. And that's all I have to say.
Anyone else wishing to speak for or against the Planning Department case 22-17, request to rezone property at 110 Ware Loop from residential to neighborhood business conditional use for recreation vehicle park? If not, this public hearing is closed. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
I have a couple.
Chris, will you come back?
Just to verify, it's a conditional use for the RVs plus 2 homes. I know you answered part of it, but can he put the RVs in at no home?
Short answer is yes. Generally, when a site plan is approved, whether it's a subdivision plan approved by staff or a conditional use plan approved by Board of Adjustment or a conditional zoning plan approved by this board, when a site plan is approved, the property owner can develop the property as shown on the plan or less. we would not allow them to enlarge the use or enlarge the capacity of that plan without reapproval.
Second question. If we was to approve the rezoning, that stays with the property from now on, is that correct?
Yes, zoning districts run with the land. So if approved, the property owner, if they ever sell, then that zoning district would remain with that property. And the new owner could then only continue to use it as approved,
Even for conditional use?
even if it's conditional use.
Can you speak to that overlay or the county planning district, because the planning district's the majority of the property, and then the Kings Mountain's that one
Yes.
corner there?
Yes, and you'll see this sometimes. So zoning districts and town jurisdictions don't necessarily follow property lines. And that's the case that we have here. And the proposal, the activity they're showing on the site plan is happening in the county's portion. So that's why the county's zoning districts would apply in this situation.
I guess that runs in their ETJ, and
It does.
like I said, it doesn't fall.
It's not necessarily in the city limits, but it's in that planning jurisdiction, the extraterritorial jurisdiction.
Was that all, can you step back? Rick, was that all the questions, or did you have more? Did that answer your questions?
No, because if you're going to allow for that gray part, that's where the septic tank is inside.
I get that. No, this gentleman here had questions. Did you have other questions too? No, just,
So I guess my question goes back to the conditional use, based on what this gentleman said. Does that mean that if Mr. DeCaro and his family were to sell the property, that it could only be used as an RV park in the future, or is it just gonna be general business? Like it can be used for some other type of business?
So if a plan and a request such as this is approved, then that runs with the land. If there is ever a new owner for that property, they would be subject to that approved plan. So they could only use the property as that plan was approved, regardless of how many owners there are in the future. If they ever want to change that use, they would have to come back to the board and ask the board to modify that plan or to rezone it to another district.
So basically, they couldn't put a Dollar General there, just for.
They could not.
Just any business, they still would have to have either the two houses and the RVs in that limit, but that's all they could have, or less.
That's
Correct.
all, that's right.
Mr. Evans, did that answer your question? Well, ask your question again then.
Because he's talking about tying into a septic tank that's in Kings Mountain zone, and you're allowing it to happen. In other words, I should be able to go over there across into Kings Mountain zone, buy me a lot, put me a mobile home on it, because you just allow, you're saying it's okay to rezone this right offhand, and he can tie into this septic tank. But the septic tank's tore up, but it don't matter, he can still move his camper inside the zone.
Can you address that quickly?
I would just say that the consideration tonight is only for the county's portion of this property. The portion of the property that's inside the City of Kings Mountain zoning district would remain whatever the district is that they have zoned, suburban residential, I believe. So you're only considering the portion that's in the county. And again, the zoning districts and the town jurisdictions don't necessarily follow property lines like you see with this site.
But is it not correct that it don't matter how we zone it, the environmental health has to come out and approve any septic tank connections or any septic tanks that's gonna be used, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So we're not saying they're okay to be used, all we're doing is addressing the zoning.
That's right. With any type of development, if the zoning gets approval by staff or the Board of Commissioners, the next step for that property owner would be to seek wastewater approval from the environmental health.
There was much conversation during the planning board meeting about spot zoning, and I don't think anything was ever determined, and I don't think we've determined tonight whether or not it's spot zoning. Would you classify this as spot zoning?
I think that one can consider the spot zoning. With spot zoning, as I said before, you've got two things that you want to look at. You want to first decide if it's a spot zone. And then if it is a spot zone, you want to decide if it's a benefit to the area around it and a reasonable request. To decide if it's a spot zone, you want to look at the size of the parcel relative to the parcels around it. You want to determine if the request is for one parcel or multiple parcels. You know, there's less likelihood of it being considered a spot zone if you're asking to rezone 10 parcels versus one parcel.
And if it fits in with the neighborhood.
Right, the in harmony part of that.
Harmony.
So if you determine it's a spot zone, I think the next step is to decide if the request is in harmony with that area.
You know, one thing about it, and like someone stated before, the way the planning board voted is a problem. But if you look at it, is the glass full or is the glass half empty? So you've got one half says, hey, there's a reason for it, and the other half said there's a reason against it. So I guess you could take a side. You want to say, is it empty or is it full? So that's what we got to decide tonight.
I have another question. I know that it's already been asked one time, but I'm not sure I quite understood. So if these people decide they don't want to build a home, they don't have to. They can just put the RV park in. Am I correct?
Yes. They could build one house, two houses, 3 sites, 4 sites.
But they actually don't have to put a home on there if they don't want to. They can just be 10 RVs. I have heard that through the grapevine, that this could be up to 40. Rumor is, I don't understand, maybe this is just rumor, but I just don't understand. I kind of feel like it's wishy-washy that we're being told there'll be 2 homes, but they don't have to build a home. I don't quite understand that. And another thing I didn't understand was that property can be seen from Brook Road, way down Brook Road. And my property doesn't touch that property, but I can very well see it from my house. So that's really stretching the truth a little bit.
All right. Commissioners, what other questions do you guys have?
Chris, do you have a map there that shows the zoning all around it?
Yes, we can provide that.
Okay, yeah, that's the one I remember seeing.
So
To me, the ones that are in red are businesses that were there before we ever started zoning in the county. So they were grandfathered in. Everything else has been zoned by the county has been residential. Or up in the right top corner is restricted residential, which is a little larger homes. But I just don't think that I'm in favor of changing one little spot there to a different zoning than everything that's around it, because we've had several cases in the past where we've tried to get zoning into compliance. And you know, I don't see us trying to change the zoning that would stand out as this looks pretty obvious that it's spot zoning.
I'll add one other thing, that the planning board, they had a 3-3 vote. The motion that was made was to deny the petition because the person who made a motion to deny the petition because they felt like it was a spot zone that wouldn't benefit the area around it. And so the vote was 3-3 on that motion. You had 3 agreed with that motion and 3 disagreed with that motion.
Mr. Chairman, maybe one other question was asked earlier, maybe you can answer it, but it alluded to that 4 mobile homes can be only so many per acre, but there's a difference between RVs and mobile homes as far as the amount you can put on an acre. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Would you tell us the difference?
RVs, it's 6 per acre.
6 per acre? and
That's correct.
3 per mobile home, okay. You know, I'm gonna step out because I don't think this is gonna be in harmony with the community. You'll go ahead.
You want some?
Ma'am, the public hearing's over. Ma'am, the public hearing's over.
Oh, okay, I don't have to.
Yeah, we're fixing to take a vote. You guys had your chance, I asked numerous times. Go ahead, Johnny.
Okay, we live on Road Front.
But with looking
And I
at,
can see all behind us.
but in looking with it, and I'm in agreement probably with what Ronnie's thinking. We've worked hard to try to bring the different areas into perspective where we were out of compliance. So I don't think that we should move in the direction of moving an area or a property out of compliance with all the rest of it in it, because we've really worked hard over the motion. And I'll step out and make a motion if it's ready for one, when you're ready.
If there's no other questions from the commissioners, anybody else have any questions? Yeah, whenever you're ready.
I make a motion we deny his request due to it's not in harmony with the surrounding areas and the community.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to deny the request. Are there any other questions or discussions from the commissioners? All right, if not, all those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed will say no. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, Chris. Next item on the agenda is Planning Department Case 22-18, request to rezone property at 1622 Long Branch Road from light industry to heavy industry.
Okay, so our next request is also a petitioner asking to change the zoning of a parcel. The parcel is approximately 25 acres, and it's located along at the corner, at the intersection of Long Branch Road and South Battleground Avenue between the Grover and Kings Mountain areas. The current zoning is light industrial, which you see represented in blue, and the requested district is heavy industrial, and that would be designated as the purple color. The surrounding area consists mostly of industrial uses and some commercial uses, and then there's some residential uses along Long Branch northwest of the property. The surrounding zoning districts it's a mixed bag. You see both types of industrial, you see general business, and then some residential along Long Branch. The uses that you'll typically find in a heavy industrial are going to be your most intensive uses that are allowed. You're going to, you can envision manufacturing plants, lots of steam, lots of traffic, lots of infrastructure supporting those uses. And this area, our land use plan calls it primary growth, and the reason we call this area primary growth is because it has a lot of those supporting factors for these types of uses that you'd find in these zoning districts. We presented this to the planning board. They noted that it complied with the land use plan, and that the requested district of heavy industrial also would be consistent with some of the parcels around it that are already zoned heavy industrial, and they recommended approval.
It's the Brickyard.
It is. The current use of the property is the Brickyard. Shell is the name.
All right, commissioners, at this time, any of you have any questions for Chris? All right, if not, this time we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against Planning Department Case 22-18 rezone? This is a request to rezone property at 1622 Long Branch Road from light industry to heavy industry. Please come forward and state your name and address.
Michael Aho, 101 Bryant Street, Belmont, North Carolina. I'm here representing for the rezone. If you got any questions, please let me know. Thanks for your consideration.
Anyone else wishing to speak for or against Planning Department Case 22-18, request to rezone property at 1622 Long Branch Road from light industry to heavy industry, please come forward, state your name and address. All right, seeing none at this time, the public hearing is closed. Commissioners, do you have any other questions, or is there any discussion before we take a vote?
Well, this is in harmony, so I would be willing to make a motion that we accept it. It's in order.
And I agree with Commissioner Bridges, and in fact, if we do that, it'll tie the two heavy industrials together and take away what looks like spot zoning now. So I will second his motion.
Just a comment, and that's what I made a comment earlier that you did too. We've been trying to work in uniform the different areas, and that will bring it more in line with the rest of the area and combining the two properties.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? If not, all those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed will say no. Next item on the agenda is another case, Planning Department Case 22-22. This is a text amendment to Section 12-124 of the Unified Development Code.
All right, so our third item is a request to change the table of uses and to add data centers as an allowable use in both the light industrial and heavy industrial zoning districts. Our current code does not acknowledge data centers, so there's no zoning district that would allow that use. We have presented this item to the planning board, and they recommend approval. And they noted that the code could be updated. Approving this would update the code to allow uses that are more common today. And I can answer any questions for that.
All right, Commissioners, do you have any questions for Chris?
Just some comments that, just like the other two that we've talked about being in compliance, we do have data centers in the county, but they're in the cities or of Kings Mountain or Shelby, so they're not really in the counties. But we have them here already. And I think data centers is something, back when this thing was first written, probably nobody even knew what a data center was. So I think bringing this into line would, there again, address what we've tried to do with the other ones, bring our planning into zoning, into compliance so that we can have these things that we need. So I would make a motion that we approve it. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Any other comments or questions? All right, just hang tight. If not, anyone wishing to speak for or against Planning Department case 22-22, which is a text amendment to Section 12-124 of the Unified Development Ordinance, please come forward and state your name and address. Anyone wishing to speak for or against Planning Department case 22-22, text amendment to Section 12-124 of the Unified Development Ordinance, please come forward and state your name and address. All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Now, is there any other questions or discussions by the commissioners? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion second. Is there any other discussion? If not, all those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed will say no. All right, thank you, Chris, for all your work. Now, board, we're to the regular agenda. First item is the emergency medical transition, EMS transition. I'll recognize Tommy McNeely, our EMS director.
So good afternoon. I'm here to, again, present an update on the transition process within the county with the EMS service there. If you'll look at the photo on the left of the screen, this is a new EMS base that we placed in Lawndale as part of the transition. It has an ALS ambulance station there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So some background on the transition process to this point, and certainly not to insult your intelligence as you were there firsthand and know it. The Board of Commissioners voted to essentially administer EMS services within Cleveland County for one ambulance provider at their February 25th work session. This was after a presentation by the Public Safety Strategic Planning Group and also a presentation by Dr. Sanchez. After that, the board tasked the board chair and the county manager to begin consolidating Cleveland County Emergency Service, medical services into, again, one ambulance provider there with two goals in mind, which was standardized patient care and improved response times. So the transition plan itself was broken into 4 phases. Phase 1 was communication with the rescue agencies. Phase 2 and Phase 3, personnel and capital, was a period of system equalization where we could get the county where it needed to be to provide the same services that the rescue squads were providing, but it's us providing as a singular provider. And then Phase 4, where we're currently at there, is system enhancement. So the goals of the transition were continued service to the citizens of Cleveland County, communicate the transition plan to the rescue agencies, hire individuals to fill those spots so that there was no loss of service, and acquire the needed capital for additional staff and to provide care as we were with no loss of service, and begin system enhancement. So Phase 1, again, geared toward communication. Myself and Manager Epley called the board chairs and chiefs of each of the rescue agencies and communicated the message of, the county's intent to centrally administer EMS services. And what we communicated there was a commitment to hiring all eligible personnel of those agencies to purchase needed capital to continue the service that we provide, and to hopefully build a seamless partnership between those groups for a smooth transition, which I believe we've had. If you look there, Upper Cleveland ceased operations on March 31st, Shelby on May 22nd, and Kings Mountain just a week or so ago on June 30th. Phase 2, geared at personnel, we held hiring events at the American Red Cross where all eligible employees were offered employment at a rate equal to or higher than they were currently making, also with insurance and benefits, which they didn't currently have. We onboarded 16 full-time individuals. 12 of those individuals operate out of the Shelby Cleaners across the road and the transport trucks over there. The other ones were placed on 24-hour 911 trucks. And then we have 15 part-time individuals that were hired from the rescue agencies that definitely supplement day-to-day stuff when people call out sick or want time off, special events too. Phase 3, geared at capital, purchased Shelby Rescue. I guess the best term for it would be lock, stock, and barrel for $1.25 million there. And we purchased some electronics from Kings Mountain Rescue, 10 radios, 2 cardiac monitors for the amount that they were indebted for those items. Total capital investment there was 1.3. We've continually been talking with Upper Cleveland Rescue, but they've gave us no intent that they are going to sell or are not going to sell at this point. They just haven't told us a whole lot. But they are conducting market surveys and analysis for the worth of their goods. Then Phase 4, where we're at today, system enhancement. I included the Kaiser base on this and a commitment to coverage. Not that there wasn't adequate coverage in the past, but I would definitely say that there's better coverage now in the north end than there's probably ever been. We have a 24-hour paramedic that's stationed on the grounds of Kaiser Elementary School. And then we also, like I showed you in that first slide there, the Lawndale base has been established as part of this transition plan so that there was no loss of coverage in Lawndale. And I guess to speak to that, there was EMS bases in Kings Mountain, EMS bases in Shelby. There wasn't an EMS base in Lawndale, so whenever Upper Cleveland ceased, there was a need for that. It's staffed 24/7 with an ALS ambulance there. Also, as part of this system enhancement, we're adding some peak shaving units that supplement 911 services within the county. We've added one so far at an ALS level. And when I say ALS level, I mean advanced life support, so they can do a whole lot for you when you're sick. We started that on July 1st. It operates out of the 306 Marion Street over here as well. And we intend to add the 3 additional that were approved as part of the plan by October. Obviously, if we can add them sooner, we'll add them sooner, but 1 per month up to October. And just a little bit of system analysis in response times up to this point. Average emergency response time right now since February 15th, since we added Kaiser, is 7 minutes and 21 seconds. This is down from about 7 minutes and 55 seconds in December of last year. So we're doing a little better there. Response times out of Kaiser, 8 minutes and 7 seconds. We attribute that to there's still a lot of rural areas up there that you have to drive a long way to. But definitely less than a 10-minute national standard. And for the Lawndale base, although there's only 12 days of data, on emergency level calls, we're doing 6 minutes and 2 seconds in emergency response. So just to recap, the transition goals there were continued service to Cleveland County, communicate the transition plan for the rescue agencies, hire 12 FTEs for interfacility transport so that there's no loss of coverage from what the rescue provided. Acquire needed capital for staffing and to begin the system enhancement. We believe we've done all those things up to this point, and we only hope to improve in the weeks and months moving forward. I come to you tonight, number 1, asking if you have any questions about the transition, and number 2, asking you to either approve or deny a budget amendment to fund this rescue transition. It wasn't originally included in our EMS departmental budget since we didn't know the cost of some of the things moving forward, but that's what's reflected in that budget amendment. It is considered cost neutral.
All right, Board, do you have any questions for Tommy?
So when you're saying cost neutral, that means you don't have enough income from the citizens that we bill.
Yes, sir.
Or the insurance companies to cover the cost?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We believe the revenue generated will fund it.
Okay. Thank you. Do we need a motion for the budget amendment? Okay.
Yes, sir, we need to approve the budget amendment.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion, we approve the budget amendment.
Second.
Any other questions or discussion?
Just like to thank Tommy for all the hard work during this transition, and I think the citizens are gonna be well served by the decisions we made.
Couldn't agree more. Any other questions or discussion, comments? If not, all those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed will say no. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is capital projects update. Ms. Carrie Melton.
All right. Good evening, Board. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. Just like our other agenda item, we have presented a capital improvement plan to the Board at your February work session. It's our intention to every couple of months come back before you to kind of give you a progress update on that capital improvement plan and where we are with specific projects. So some of the new projects, the first 2 here are ones that Tommy just mentioned, and these were not on our original capital improvement plan when we presented it in February, but through the CMS transition and the decision that you made, we have added these pretty minor projects to our program. The first being the Lawndale EMS space. I want to give kudos to our maintenance team. This, as well as the next project, all of the work was done in-house by our own maintenance employees. This project was completed just in July of this year. It will house a 24-hour paramedic base. Again, work was completed by the county, and it was funded through kind of pay-as-you-go. Staging this unit here obviously will reduce our response time and just provide a higher level of service to our citizens. The next project Tommy mentioned also was what we're calling right now our Uptown Shelby EMS space. We see this as kind of a temporary location for these employees while we determine where their final location will be. This project was turned around very quickly, completed just this one also in July. This building will be used, as Tommy mentioned, for transport and peak shaving trucks only. This does not have housing capability. There's no bunks for employees there. All those employees that will operate out of this facility will be ones that work on 24-hour shifts, no living quarters there. And again, all of the work, kudos to our maintenance staff, was completed by county maintenance and funded pay-as-you-go. These projects, we mentioned as part of our budget presentation, Brian had mentioned them in June, and ones we're continuing to work on. Convenience site improvements, we talked about the reason for these improvements are to really provide customer service enhancements for our residents, as well as more safety. Pictured here are some improvements that we've made at Oak Grove convenience site. This was kind of our model site, and we will be taking what we've done there and kind of looking at all the other convenience site locations and kind of modeling the same pattern. The first two we'll be working on are the Boiling Springs convenience site and the Lawndale site. The next project I want to take a minute to talk about is our health and DSS co-location. That construction is underway on that project. Phase 1, which is the upstairs part of the building, is nearing completion. Child support will move first from DSS into that building, as well as our health administration team will move back. We did relocate them downstairs while the work was being done, and they will be moved back up. Those two, child support as well as health administration, those will be moving into this new space in October of this year. Expected completion for the whole project, phase 2 move in, everybody we expect to be from social services into this building by January of 2023. Again, I just want to remind the board, this project cost approximately $3.5 million. But I think one of the things we need to think about is the social services building through our facility master plan was really considered end of life. So if we were to build a new social service building, I think that what we're projected that cost would be was about $10 to $13 million. So this is a cost avoidance as much as anything else. Also, having those two departments co-located, there's going to be improved efficiencies and reductions in costs, and also the ability to have some state reimbursement come out of that project as well. I just took this picture this morning when I was in the building for another meeting and added it to my slideshow, but this building will be, at the recommendation of our facility master plan, will be workstations. Right now, in most of our buildings, in DSS specifically, it's individual offices. We're looking to a more workstation with interview room approach. This one is more efficient and also really provides better security. If a social worker was to meet with a client, they're going to meet in the interview room rather than bring them back to their office. So it's really a better security enhancement for our employees also. But we're excited to see those, and we'll kind of give you an updated picture soon on what those look like. The Justice Center campus, as we mentioned, this is kind of our biggest project we have we're working on right now. Over the last several months, since we did secure our architect, we've been meeting, countless meetings have been held with stakeholders. When I talk about stakeholders, I specifically mean the ones that will be housed in these buildings: sheriff's office, clerk of court, district attorney. We've been meeting. Reiterations of the design have been going back and forth. We are holding weekly meetings right now with the architect, as well as the CMAR, which is our construction manager, at risk. Schematic design is expected to be complete by the end of July. The entire project is expected to be complete in 2025. I will share that this morning, we introduced the architect team, our project manager specifically, and several from the CMAR firm to county staff, and an ability for them to get to meet them, and because they will be working together through the design development phase. Having a CMAR, again, just as a reminder, gives us the ability not to have to wait to bid everything at once. The contractor this morning gave an example to our employees that generators, for example, are 60-month wait right now. So being able to look at the design and order those generators ahead of time will help with some of the slowness of the project. Had we waited to bid it all at the end, we could have been, it could have extended the time that the project would take to complete. So I think the board made a very wise decision in choosing the CMAR approach for this project. So one of the things we've heard over and over and over again from several in the community was, please don't let this building be in a hole. We heard that several times from many, many folks in the community. I do want to show you this. This is kind of the conceptual design right now. We're continuing still to work a little bit on elevation, but this, at this point, is the elevation from Dekalb Street. So you will see if you're standing on Dekalb Street, you're going to look straight at the courthouse. So we've worked really hard with the engineers and the design team to make sure that this building is not located in a hole in the center of Uptown Shelby. This, for your information, is the back side, kind of the Patton Drive side. For this picture, you see that the right-hand side is cleared. That the county does not own those properties at this time, but they did that just for a visual there. But you'll see that the way we're actually leveling the site is by building the site up kind of on the back side. So this is, you'll see a large retaining wall on the back of the building. But this building, like I said, will not be located down in a hole on that property. Any questions on that one? That was kind of a big one. If you have any questions, I can, or we can wait to the end. I just wanted to, that's an exciting one for us for sure. 911 center, as you're aware, the 911 center is currently housed in the existing courthouse. So before we are able to demolish that building, we need to relocate our 911 center. We submitted a grant to the state 911 board on May 1st. Our communications director will be doing an oral presentation to that board this Friday, and grant announcement will be August 2022. We are continuing now, or starting to work with the architect design firm to get those plans in place so that when we are ready to demolish the existing courthouse, we have a new building in place for those folks. So this is another project we've been talking about for a long time. And really, again, with the EMS transition, we have kind of had a little bit of change in thought, or at least a decision that can be made. Right now, we really have two options that we're looking at. One is the original property that we talked about on Morgan Street, and the other is this location here at the old Shelby Rescue Squad building. Since we did acquire this building as part of the EMS transition, we've kind of been taking some time to look at that building and see if it would be suitable as an adaptive reuse for the Board of Elections. One of the things about this building is that it does have a lot of big open space. So if we were to use this building, we believe that it could house all the administrative functions of the Board of Elections, as well as early voting, election day voting, all the training that they need to do, and the storage required. If we were to do the project here, one of the issues that we are having or have had with the Morgan Street property, when we began this project, we said we want a big metal building. Our cost estimate, we were thinking around $500,000 or $600,000. As we've designed, as we've talked to architect, tried to get builders to bid it, those costs have just escalated to an enormous amount. So if we were to choose to use this building, it will be a much quicker and much more affordable way to actually use this building for the Board of Elections. So that's kind of still being evaluated. But we believe that if we were to use this, we would be able to be in this building and using it for a lot less money and a lot quicker than building a building from the ground up on Morgan Street. Another project I want to give you a quick update on, I took this picture just this week also. This is Shell Building 4 on Randolph Road. Again, as you're very well aware, partnership with the city of Shelby, underway. Hickory Construction's doing, is the contractor on site. We are still expecting this project to be completed at the end of this year, and we're still receiving a lot of interest at this time in this property. Just as a reminder, there'll be a 100,000 square foot shell with the ability to expand another 100,000 square feet. Another project I want to just share a little bit about is shooting range enhancements. As you're well aware, since we opened the range, we've done several expansions out there. Most recently, the addition of the skeet and trap. These projects have all been done through the partnership with the Wildlife Commission. Some of the things we're working on there right now, and a lot of that is kind of stemming from our Glock Shooting Foundation and the ability for us to be able to host these national tournaments. Some things we're doing to be able to do that. One is the building of a pavilion at the skeet and trap range, dividing several of the shooting ranges, as well as working on a grading plan to add 4 new shooting bays. Sandra, it wasn't too long ago that she gave a presentation to all of you. We continue to stay busy out at the shooting range facility there out near the landfill. The last project I just want to mention, and this is kind of an emerging project, I think I mentioned it to you all as part of the capital improvement plan. One of the things that we've been talking about and one of the board's strategic goals really for us to continue to be an employer of choice. One of the things that we're looking at, which we think is in a kind of an innovative way, something new, is the potential for a child care center for our employees. As at this time, we're kind of evaluating a potential location and cost for this project. And if we were to move forward with this project, this would be kind of funded as a pay-as-you-go to no debt would be required to complete this project. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Carrie. Board, do you have any questions or comments?
Appreciate it.
If not, there's no action on this item. Thank you again for the update. Next, we have a couple board appointments. Clerk?
Board, we just have a couple board appointments tonight. The first one up is the Cleveland County Nursing Home Advisory Committee. No new applications were received. The applicants listed have been vetted by the local ombudsman, have completed the necessary requirements and training, and their applications have also been reviewed by the other members of the Nursing Home Advisory Board. At this time, you will need to appoint 2 people for a 3-year term set to expire June 30th, 2025.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Wanda Robinson and Karen Waldrop.
I'll second it. All right, we have a motion second. All those in favor will vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed will say no. My motion carries. One more.
Our second one is for the Veterans Advisory Board. Deborah Kahn, who has been a longtime amazing standing up employee. She has been the representative on the Veterans Advisory Board. She has asked to step down and to reappoint Julie Krotz, who is the new Veterans Advisory Board employee there. Deborah has said that she will continue to volunteer and be involved, but she would like to have Julie grow in her responsibilities, and this would be one of them. So she's asking for approval of her resignation and then reappointing Julie Krotz from the Veteran Advisory Board as that representative for the board.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion second. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed will say no. All right, we're close to the end. So, commissioners, do you have anything you'd like to report?
I think this is the last weekend for Liberty Mountain. I think Ronnie mentioned it last time, but I took my grandchildren and they were so enthused by it. They asked me to take them to the Kings Mountain Battleground today. And they've got a new love of American history now. We did just pass July 4th. We need to remember Thomas Jefferson thought that had they lost at Kings Mountain, we might have a whole different government now. So,
Anybody else?
I have something, and I'd just like to bring it out, but, it seems like that we're getting more and more requests for these RV parks. It hadn't been that long that we had a couple fires in RV parks, and there was not any way to identify the unit in the park. And I think too, when these permits are issued, they're issued a certain number of units in the parks, whatever. And I know if you got a house or a trailer, you have to have the big letters out front. So I'd like to see us check in on all the trailer park, RV park, anything we got in the county. Let's start making them put the numbers out on the post, so, because we're gonna get called. Ambulance gonna be called out, and somebody's gonna be laying inside one of these vehicles, not be able to get out, and they're not gonna know where to find it, so we need to get ahead of that. So that might be something definite that we need to put on a work session, but Chris and them can start looking at it already, maybe Tommy and 911, but there should be some way that they can put it in the GIS so that these places can be located.
Anybody else? Anything else? Brian, staff, him, got anything? All right, with that, then we're down to the adjournment. Next meeting of the Cleveland County Board of Commissioners will be held Tuesday, August the 2nd, 6 p.m. here in the Commissioners' Chambers. With that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor will say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed?